This
McKinnon.
conference will now be recorded.
Mr.
Ellie,
McKinnon?
if I could have you go through the roll call again, please, because I didn't press
Sure.
record till you were in the middle of it.
Okay. Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. Kynes?
Here.
Mr. Malagranda?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Ms. Morgan?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Okay. We do have a quorum. We have all the trustees present. Do we have any conflict of interest tonight on any of the issues? Okay, hearing none, if you decide that you do have a conflict with an issue that is brought up, please bring it to my attention as quickly as possible. Also, I do want to kind of go through some things since we are having a remote meeting. I do want to disclose on the record that we're able to do it because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the legislation that was passed recently by our state legislators that allows us to meet during this emergency. We do have to provide 48 hours notice, which we've done, and we also have to provide the ability for anyone to log in to this meeting, and we've also provided information for them to do that. We are not meeting at our physical location because we do not have enough room to keep people socially distant. So we are allowed to have everyone be remote. I'm able to be here at the village office, and that is required that if able, we have one of the trustees or the village president be at the physical location. And we also must have all votes by roll call. So it may seem long, but every single vote we take to approve the agenda will be by roll call, just because they want to have on the record, especially if we can't see who's responding, that we have on the record the person responding to that person's name. So with that out of the way, we'll move forward with any changes in the agenda for tonight.
Public Works would like to take item number 2 off the agenda.
All right, thank you. I did notice there's 2 things that I would like to bring up. One is we do have item under my items, number 3, Rock River Energy Services. I'd like to bring that to, well, I want to bring it to the front if we were going to have somebody here from there to talk about it. I don't see anybody here yet logged in, but we would do that after the audit presentation. And Sally Huggins, I just want to let you know that we do have Amber Pena who's present. And Amber, is Vince also with you?
Yes, he is.
Okay, and could you spell, or Vince, can you spell your last name, or either one of you spell his last name for Sally, please? Sally, I'm gonna, is it M-A-N-G-L-A-R-A-C-I-N-A? I believe that's
I
Vince's
can't go
last
that fast.
name. M-A-N-G-L-A-R-A-C-I-N-A. And then Amber's last name is P-E-N-A.
And what was this man, whatever, what was that person's first name?
Vincent, V-I-N-C-E-N-T.
Thank you.
And then Randy Cook has also joined the meeting.
Frank, the spelling of the Mangiachina, I believe it's M-A-N-G-I-A. There they are. Now he can spell his own last name, but it's an I in there. I know it is.
I like the way you said it, Mangiachina. That's an Italian. I can tell that, huh?
Could you spell it, please, for the record?
It's M-A-N-G-I-A-R-A-C-I-N-A.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, so I just wanted to let you know that we had those additional people.
Okay.
The other thing is we have under community development and also finance committee, the garbage service contract. So if you want, we can strike it from community development and keep it under finance committee. I mean, then we'll just take it up there. Should be rather quick. So I would suggest we strike out C3 under community development and leave.
Frank,
Yeah.
I've got a whole bunch of complaints about the garbage pickup.
Oh, okay.
I'd like
So
to
if you
go
have
over them.
all right. So if you have complaints, we'll deal with it then. Okay. We'll leave it on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, so we would take out under Public Works number 2, and then we would move Rock River Energy Services up to under the audit presentation.
Right.
Any other changes? Okay, hearing none, if we could have roll call to
Yes.
as modified.
We haven't got a
I do have
motion.
one.
Oh,
Can
Jeremy's
we
back.
remove under the consent agenda the credit card, letter D, credit card June usage?
Sure. And then for those of you that are not participating in the conversation, if you could please put mute on. So you need to speak or you are speaking. All right.
We have a new caller.
Yes, that is me. I'm switching to my computer now.
Yep. All right. So Stan, we were getting a little bit of feedback from you. There we go. All right. So if we could have a roll call for approval of the agenda, please.
I didn't have a motion or a second.
Oh,
Mike McKinnon will motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
so Mr. McKinnon with the motion, Mr. Graham with the second.
Okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Vote. Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kime,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, so that's approved. We can move on to the consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved by Mike McKinnon.
Don Kynes will second.
All right, thank you. We'll need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kine,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
All right, that's approved. We have no one signed up for public comment, so we'll proceed to the audit presentation. So you're on, Jenny.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me remotely this year. As strange as it may sound, this is actually my first virtual presentation, so bear with me a little bit getting my bearings here. I'm sure I'll have quite a few coming up here in the next few weeks, so unfortunately you end up being my guinea pig this year, so I apologize for that.
That's okay, we don't
Just
mind.
I'm sorry?
We don't mind.
Okay. I believe everybody would have received PDF copies of the audit reports and the other letters that went along with that. So I'm just going to very briefly go over those items, just hit some of the very high points for this year and explain what you would see in the letters, and then open it up for questions at that point in time. And the easiest way to make a comparison year to year in your audit this year is by starting with the PDF page 10, which is technically page 7 of the report. There's some great comparative tables here that go through how the position of the village changed from 2018 to 2019. These are part of the management's discussion and analysis. It's not technically part of our audited financial statements, but the numbers are derived from the same source. And so it's a great source of those comparative numbers from year to year. And again, just to hit some of those high points for you, the cash position stayed pretty stable within your governmental funds for the year, which as a refresher would be your general fund, the 4th of July fund, community development, debt service, and motor fuel tax. Those funds maintain a cash balance, only changing by a small decrease of $20,000 from year to year. So very stable in 2019. The water funds actually saw an increase of $360,000 in those cash balances this year. So that's great movement on that. I know there was a significant change in 2018 because of the large payment on the intergovernmental agreement, but nothing to that extent that's unusual for 2019 for sure. Again, moving on to some of, just catching some of the highlights here, change from year to year. Moving forward a couple pages to your PDF, page 12, which is technically page 9 of the report. Your program revenues increased overall by about $70,000 for the year. Again, great progress to be increasing in those service revenues. And I anticipate that that will increase again for 2020 because this is, of course, the first year that you've had a full year of both the liquor licenses and the gaming revenue. So that will certainly push that revenue up for 2020 as well. At least you hope. COVID, no bearing with that here. As far as your other general taxes for the district or for the village increased by about $80,000 for the year. So again, always great to see increases here in the revenue side of things. Your expenses also increased for the year. But overall, you showed an overall excess of revenues over expenditures of about $643,000 for the village for the year. And that is including activity in all of those general funds as well as the activity in the water fund. So the fund is building itself back up. It did by itself show an increase over the prior year of about $525,000. Still in a negative fund balance position at the end of the year, but as you continue to collect the increase in service fees, that's going to generally offset itself over the next few years. Those are essentially the high points of the financial statements themselves. As I mentioned, you would have received a couple of other letters from us. I'm going to start with the one that's labeled Audit Committee Letter. This is generally a letter that we are required to give to the governing board of any governmental entities that we do audit. And it's some general information about the audit itself and some of the findings or the various things that we observed as we did the audit. So this is one that starts out, we have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, business type activities in each major fund of the Village of Winnebago for the year ended December 31st, 2019. It talks about some of the significant audit findings. Just as a reminder, the village is ultimately responsible for the financial statements. We certainly get a lot of help from Mark in the whole process of getting those put together, and really, really appreciate his help, as well as Sally too. So thank you for all of the assistance pulling together all of the information for us. We do know that things got delayed a bit this year. Unfortunately, in the year that we were trying to transition your audit from being fully staffed by our Rockford office to fully staffed by our Freeport office, it happened to be a year in which nobody could actually sit in the same room as each other. So it did unfortunately lead to some delays. And so Sally, I thank you a lot for your patience during this whole process. We talk in this letter about some of the accounting estimates that are built into the financial statements. No major changes there for your year. Of course, some of your major estimates really involve the pension liabilities, which are for the most part out of your control, as well as some estimates as far as doubtful accounts within your utility billings. And that's based off of historical numbers. We do also have a mention in this letter as far as any corrected and uncorrected misstatements. And there are a couple of reports attached at the very end of this letter that one shows the various journal entries that we had to make as adjustments. And for the most part, these are not anything I would consider to be unusual. because they're mainly related to those pension liabilities. And those pension liabilities are tricky to account for, and certainly are something that is normally adjusted as part of the financial statement process. The only other one that we had to make an adjustment for is for accumulated depreciation and depreciation expense within fixed assets. There was a truck that was split 50-50 between a purchase for the water fund and the general fund, and so we had to make a couple of adjustments for that. The last page of the report then, it looks a little bit complicated. I'm going to kind of hold it up here to my webcam real quick. What this report is actually trying to say is these are the items that we identified as part of the audit that were considered immaterial or too small to really worry about. So we did not adjust for these items, but we do have to go through a calculation process each year to say, okay, what would the tolerance be if somebody was possibly concerned about these? And these just met that threshold where we have to at least bring them to your attention, but they were definitely not significant enough that we required any kind of adjustments for those. And those items were just the motor fuel tax receivable was understated by a small amount, about $4,300. Based on calculations, again, those allowance for bad debts are estimates, and they're based off of historical information. And when we did some estimating of our own, we felt that the allowance might be a little bit high compared to what's on the books right now, but only by about $8,000. And then at the end of the year, you have a period of time between your last actual billing of the year until the physical year end, 12/31. There were 5 days in that period during December. It doesn't get billed out until January of 2020. And so we did a calculation of what the estimate of those additional fees would be had they been recorded as of the end of the year, is approximately $15,000. No change really from the prior year. It's pretty consistent from year to year. So again, we thought that was, again, enough that we needed to bring that to your attention, but not anything that needed to actually be adjusted as part of the audit. The rest of the letter goes on to say that we were happy that there were no disagreements with management. Nobody threw us out of the building because, of course, we weren't in the building at the time. So I'm pleased to say that everything for the audit went pretty smoothly. And then the final letter that I have for you tonight is the one that is labeled management letter. And this is a letter that we are required to give to all of the entities that we audit, governmental or otherwise, because as part of the audit, we have to do an evaluation of your internal controls and your processes to see how well you're following your own procedures and whether there might be any weaknesses out there that would potentially cause some issues on the accounting side of things. No surprises here. The only issue that we did identify is the same as what we have in the prior years, and that's just to point out to you again that you have a segregation of duties issue because you only have a couple people in the office. Definitely not something that we're overly concerned about. You do have the ability to have somebody from the outside, Mark Olson, involved in the financial process and looking over all the financial information. So that's really a great benefit to have a second set of eyes, so to speak, on everything. Really, there's no way that you're going to be able to get rid of this comment unless you hired a whole bunch of more extra people. And we don't feel that there's probably any cost benefit to that because of the additional costs that you would have to go through to completely segregate the duties. So very common to have this comment in smaller governmental entities. So certainly not anything that we're overly concerned about. So with that, any questions for me?
Well, Jenny, I appreciate the audit and the explanations. Again, it's good to have the management letter that states that their only deficiency is what you just stated. We strive to make sure that we have as few of those as possible. So
definitely.
Jenny, is there anything that you saw that we could do better, or any suggestions outside of what you would put in a written audit?
There's really not anything that we would have in addition to that. Everything is pretty much in order by the time it gets to us. And really the delays in the audit this year were simply because of COVID and all of the issues that go along with that. So we really didn't run into any issues as far as getting any information. We didn't run into any issues once we had the information with anything that we saw. So really, for the most part, I don't see any areas of concern or any other comments that we would have beyond what we've given you here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? All right, well, Jenny, thank you for appearing for your first time at a village meeting to do an audit. So I think you did very well. So
Well, thank you. It's definitely a different situation because I can't tell if people aren't asking comments or asking questions because they're all muted or because they really don't have any questions. So it's a little different experience over here.
there you go.
Thank you, Jenny, and also Jill Johnson.
Yes.
You guys were great.
Jill did a great job and because she's most familiar with the village's audit. She's one of our staff from a Rockford office, has been with us for a long time, and she's very good. And Amanda Degner was one of the other ones that we pulled in from our Freeport office. So we're kind of making this a combined effort now. So next year we'll go even smoother, and hopefully we'll actually be able to see everybody next year too.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to item B, which is Rock River Energy Services. And Sally Huggins, we do have Mike Mudge, who did log in a few minutes ago from Rock River Energy Services. Again, that's Mike Mudge.
Yes,
So I just want to make sure you had him.
I got it.
Indeed. So
I'm here, Craig. I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
we sure can. So thank you for forwarding the information to us. And if you just kind of want to give us a highlight of your suggestion of the latest option, and then if the trustees have any questions, I would hope they would ask them of you.
Okay. Briefly, I'll just go over quick ABCs of power purchase pricing. Usually, we get really good rates for the cities and villages because they have wastewater treatment plants which run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But in this situation, you are just running wells. And when we got bids for the 4 accounts, which are 3 wells, and then like maybe the monitoring for the tower or whatever, the rates are coming back all equal or some of them are higher than the ComEd rates. And part of the energy in itself contains transmission capacity, losses, as well as the energy. That's all in a fixed rate. It's also in the ComEd rates, and that's all regulated. We have one well that is got high capacity and transmission peak load factors. So when we sent this last meeting, I got looking at them and trying to figure out why are they so high. We got one well, and I talked to Chad on it, and I believe Chad is a Main Street well. Looked at the location, and we're not including that for the bid. We're kind of recommending putting one account back to ComEd. So what you have in front of you are 2 bids. One bid has the 3 wells in the other account, and the second bid, 2 wells in the account. And the thought process is if we have to use a well on peak, we'll use one of those other 2 wells, keep that high producing well off peak. And ComEd, they actually look at the grid, and what you're doing at that time. We think that those factors will be lower next year. We can probably add them back onto the group, or see if it works at all. It's saying a lot, but Frank and I have had discussions, and Chad and I had discussions on it. So I think what the board wants to look at is whether to lock in the rates a little bit over 5 cents a kilowatt hour instead of 7 cents for these 2 wells, to make these 2 wells workhorses of the group. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
So do any of the trustees or does anyone have any questions over what Mike went over? looks like the 3 accounts with AEP, we could go for 3 years. It would average about 5.6 cents versus the previous bids we were getting that were hovering around 7.5 cents. And so we could go out for a 3-year at that lower rate for those 3 accounts. And then the 1 account that he mentioned, we could go with ComEd at the current 7.2 cents rate. Do that for 12 months and then see how that account goes and maybe put that one out for bid after a year. I think that would make the best economic sense because 3 of our accounts would be at the much lower rate of about 5.6 cents rather than the current 7.2 cents. Any questions from anyone? If not, I would ask that these bids are time sensitive, so we do need to have approval of what you want to do and then authorizing me as the village president to sign such an agreement, which normally would be done the next day.
I think we can save the village $2,000-3,000 a year on the pumping costs by doing the split this way. And Chad's got the automation. You've got the tools there so he can operate the wells, whatever it's going to operate most efficiently. So,
Chad, do you have any thoughts one way or the other? Do you think this is something that we should look at? Think it's something that we should not look at?
We've done this successfully other places. With our SCADA program, we can, under normal circumstances, put all 3 units in off-peak, and with the 2 towers, as long as we don't have main breaks or excessive fire demand or fire flow testing like Micron and some of the areas do, we have no issue with operating by design and saving this substantial savings. Historically, and it may have changed, I would need Mike to chime in on it, but historically, some time ago, if you went into on-peak, even once during the month, you lost your savings. I don't know if that's still a factor or not, but you know, such a thing could happen that the fire department or neighboring fire departments would have to pull water during peak hours. We would still run, we wouldn't run out of water, but we have second safety parameters that the wells would run if they had to, but it's not carte blanche. There, you know, we best foot forward, we set all our operations, which we've done over the last month. We've historically always done it. There was some bad information in the past that was passed on to us. Otherwise, we would have always been running off peak, but it's no problem to go off peak. I just want the board to be aware that, you know, we can go at it with the best intentions, but there is the possibility that we would have to run on peak due to dire circumstances.
So,
but aside from that, there's no reason not. I mean, there's absolutely no reason not to do this.
Just to add to that, the on-peak, if you ever run everything off-peak and use your wells and capacity, and even sometimes you might have to run one well, you're going to save on the ComEd delivery charges in addition to lowering energy costs. So at the end of the year, your water budget will be going down because of using the tools that you already have. You're also fortunate that Chad's got a really good handle on this. You got the experience and the background from work other places. So once we looked and talked about the numbers and I understood your system through him, it's just a good winning situation for you guys.
Mike, this is trustee Mike McKinnon. If we end up going on ComEd with that one pumping station, would that be a variable rate? So we will be basically getting a lower rate, you know, during the evening, as Chad indicated. If we do have to kick it on during normal business hours, we're just paying the daily, you know, the higher rate during the day, but there is no penalties associated with that.
You would pay on the ComEd rate, the size of that well, the size of that account, would be paying 7.2 cents, whether it would be day or nighttime. It's the same with all three of these wells. But if you looked at it like you had 3 vehicles to drive, and you had 2 very efficient vehicles, which is the other 2 wells, or the third well, you'd use the third one as a last resort. And I understand you got to rotate things around. Well, by running them off peak, you're saving ComEd delivery on any one of the 3 wells, or all 3. But you're also setting it up so we can get a better rate for that high operating cost well right now. That's for the future. So there's 2 things you're accomplishing at the same time. Is that Mike?
Well, it sounds like we recognize we would be paying a higher rate, but as opposed to a comparison of natural gas, when all of a sudden you go into an overburn situation that you could be paying ridiculously high rates, it doesn't sound like the situation that we have with here. We're just simply having to pay a higher rate for that particular well house.
Right, and that rate, if you went back to ComEd for all of the wells, you'd be paying that rate no matter when you used it or what time you used it. Unless, like Chad said, you got enough storage, you're able to run on peak. And that, like I said, that'll drop off the delivery charge $300-400 off of each site, if you're able to do that each month. Except for, like Chad said, an emergency situation. So, and we talking with Chad and email and Frank back and forth. You know, we want to try this. We want to try this out for a year and see how successful we are, and we'll be able to measure it. You know, it's just worked in other places in other communities, and you know, we do this with the city of Rockford also. They have particular wells that may run during the day because they don't have enough storage to meet the demand all day long like you guys do. So they got to run some, but they don't intermittently run different wells at different stages. But they also got certain areas that they have to cover also. Whole nother issue, a larger complicated system there, but like I said, Chad's got a good system. If we didn't do anything, if Chad wasn't able to run these at night and that, you're still going to be better off than if you just put them all back to ComEd and ran them, you know, one day, one another day, one another day. So I'm not sure about the mixing of water and the rest of the collecting of the wells and all that stuff. I'll leave that up to Chad. I'm not an operator. I just know what it does to the rates. So
in essence, we're locking in the rate that we pay. It doesn't matter. We can run them 24/7, and we're going to be guaranteed one rate with AEP and another rate with ComEd. It's just the delivery charge may go up or down depending upon what time of day. Correct?
right, the delivery charges are variable. That's month to month to month, and that changes each month. ComEd resets the dial every month. So you're right, Frank.
So it's to our benefit to run the 5.6 cent ones as much as possible. And then as we need to, we run the ComEd one and try and run that off peak so our delivery charge is less, even though we're paying the 7.2 cent rate.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? What I'd be looking for is a motion to have AEP be our service provider. I would suggest for the 36-month period for those 3 listed accounts, and ComEd be our provider for the 4th account for 12 months.
Mike McKinnon will make that motion.
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
Okay. Sally Huggins, I don't know if you need the account numbers. Do you want me to read those in?
Can I get them off the top of that sheet?
They should
Or
be
the
on
bottom,
that
I mean?
last sheet. Yep, they should be on the last sheet.
Right. I'll get them from there.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, and I'm just pausing to make sure everyone had the opportunity. Roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kine. Mr. Kine?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Are you a yes?
Yes, I'm a yes.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. That's approved. So thank you, Mr. Mudge, for showing up and explaining that tonight. And as you get the contracts, go ahead and forward them to me, please.
I'll send that in a little bit, Frank, and you'll have it so you can get it back tomorrow or whatever. And thank you, board, very much for taking the time to listen to me and to Chad. I think you got a good operator on your hands there.
All right, thank you very much. Take care.
Frank, do we need a motion to authorize you to sign these documents?
Why
That was
don't we do that?
included in my motion, you just didn't hear it.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I would amend my motion to not only move forward with the AAP, but also authorize President Eubanks to sign the necessary documents.
And I will second that amended motion.
To make it easier, let's just have a second motion because we've already approved the first motion to go with that. So let's just do a second motion, Mike, where you just authorize the village president to sign the contracts with those two places.
So moved. Mike McKinnon.
Second, Jeremy Graham.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on that? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Ms. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham? Mr. Graham?
I don't see that he's logged in. If you could skip him and go on to the next one.
Mr. Kine?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
And I do about Mr. Graham. Is he absent?
He's absent for the vote, so all right, so we have Mr. Graham logged back in. So
Are
Mr.
you a
Graham,
yes
you
or
are,
a no on this vote? Mr. Graham?
I show his microphone is open.
Mr. Graham?
Well, he is not a yes vote, but he is present, so I believe that would count as a no vote. Would go against what the proposition's for.
So the motion carries a 5-1 vote.
It does carry with a 5-1 vote. Thank you then. All right, so let's move on to Public Works. And Mr. Graham, can you hear us at all? We cannot hear you. All right, Mr. McKinnon, you may proceed.
Okay, item number one, my apologies. I had intended to send Kelly the minutes from the Public Works meeting last week, and I didn't realize it until shortly before this meeting. I never hit send on the draft, so what you actually had in the packet was the meeting minutes from August, where we had a couple typographical errors corrected, but you did not receive the minutes from our meeting last week, so we will get those emailed out to everybody after the meeting. Item number 3 on the agenda, we have a motion from committee to extend the probationary period for a new employee, which is our Public Works Assistant meter reader, from the scheduled probation date of September the 10th, and extend that to November the 9th of 2020. And that is a motion by committee.
Okay, since it's by committee, we do not need a second, and we do have a new caller calling in.
Hi, that's me.
All right.
Jeremy Graham.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you give me the title of the person that this probation, I don't know what his title is.
Is the Public Works Assistant, the meter reader position?
I just had to be sure I get it in the minutes right.
No problem, understood. And again, there would have been some additional language in the minutes that I would have thought you would have the opportunity to read, but the fact that you did not get them, the main reason this was requested by Public Works staff is this individual hired on, and just within days of him being hired, we started running into the COVID-19 restrictions. So Public Works staff does not feel that were adequately able to train this individual for the better part of 3 months on his initial employment. And while the individual has progressed, he is not at a point where the staff would feel comfortable moving it from the probationary period to permanent employment. And in our employee handbook, there is a provision that the board can extend a probationary period for up to 90 days. The request from Public Works staff was to go out about 60 days, which would effectively coincide with the November board meeting. And so that is what we had passed at the committee level, and that is what we're recommending to the board to approve.
Okay.
We also need to identify the name of the individual since we're in a general meeting.
Let me get my notes here. The individual in question is Darren Burkhart.
Okay, so we have a pending motion. Any other discussion regarding the pending motion? Okay, so we'll need a roll call vote to approve the extension of the probationary period for Mr. Darren Burkhart.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kine?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
All right, so that's approved unanimously.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Public Works staff was tasked with trying to identify a feasible option for a generator for the village hall. And after a lot of scrutiny and due diligence or whatever, they have secured a quotation from JP Electric in the amount of $10,500 to install a 20 kilowatt natural gas fired generator, which would include a 200 amp automated transfer switch. So if the power were to go down, the switch would automatically engage, separate the hall from the grid, so there's not to cause any harm to any Commonwealth Edison employees. The generator would start up, provides suitable power for the village hall. And upon restoration from ComEd, which would back off and shut the generator down and restore the village to power. If it were done this way, there's no necessity to run extension cords and things of that nature. The consensus of the Public Works Committee was that this would be the preferred option if and when budget was available and the board were to go forward. The committee did not act on a recommendation to move forward. So we're just bringing everybody up to date on what was found and what would be the recommendation if we did have suitable budget and were able to move forward.
Thank you for the information. All right. Let's move on. If there's no other discussion regarding that, anything else from Public Works?
That's it from Public Works.
All right, thank you again. Let's move on to the village engineer. I know we do have your report. Anything else to add? Seth?
Not much to add. The only thing that we've really been up to is we assisted in the review of the Winnebago storage facility, and then also just keeping tabs with Chad on when the fog ceiling is going to be completed, which is something that he's working to schedule with Civil. So other than that, really not a whole lot, unless somebody has some questions for me.
Anything for the village engineer? All right, well, thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Sure. Let's go on to community development. Mr. Kimes?
Yes. Yes. You have the code enforcement officer's report in the packet, and most everything on that report, I'm assuming everybody has got a chance to read it, has either been in the works or has been taken care of. And the number 2, the solar electric system, how are we coming along on that, Mary?
Mary, you have your...
Sorry, I was muted. I do have a draft. I just wanted to find out, Trustee Kimes, is there going to be a community development committee meeting where we might be discussing it, or would you rather that it just be sent out because maybe we're not having a meeting anytime soon?
I probably would like to have you send it out a little bit, if you would, please, Mary.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about...
Is that going to the all board?
Yes. Do we need a vote?
No, she's just asking if I'm going to be sending it forward, and I guess that's up to, it went to community development for consideration, or the idea was sent over to community development. So I guess I need to know if community development wants to take a look at it first, or if they want everyone to see it at the same time.
I'd like to have everybody see it at the same time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 3, garbage service. We've been getting, the village of Winnebago has been getting quite a few calls about the mismatch of the garbage service. I have a personal experience. They've missed my recyclables for 5 weeks on and off. They pick them up every 2 weeks, but 5 times I've missed my recyclables being picked up. Also, we had another customer has called and explained to him he didn't know why they're picking up his garbage at 4:50 in the morning. He thought because of the excessive noise, they weren't supposed to pick it up until after 6 o'clock. Well, they picked up my garbage last Tuesday at 4:55 a.m. So I don't know. Has anybody else on the board have any concerns with that? Or should we, when we get a call like that, have our customer or one of our village residents have them call Gills direct? Would like some input on that.
Well, I've experienced that too. I hear them come by 5 o'clock or sometimes earlier than that around my house. But obviously each customer has the ability to contact Gills and to state what he or she does not like or does like about their service. So obviously we would promote each resident who's having difficulties or having a good situation, contact Gills directly and let them know their good or bad experience. They can contact the village office to let us know so we can kind of keep track, but it's usually very effective if they contact Gills directly.
Yes, but I've also run across this. I pay my garbage bill to the village of Winnebago. Do you not take any responsibility to that? That was told to me by one particular individual, and I said, well, you got a point there. We are the middleman. You are paying for service, and you are not receiving what you applied for. But the times that they pick it up, we do have an ordinance that tells them they can't, something about excess noise. I don't exactly know exactly the wording in it, but I just thought that I would bring that up for discussion. Has anybody got anything on the time? Should they be reminded what they can and can't do?
Right, our contract says 6 a.m., so they're not allowed to come and pick up before 6 a.m. according to the contract.
That's what I have, but since I've been away from it for a while, I didn't remember whether that's still in effect. Okay, well, we got that fairly well handled. The picnic tables that were kind of brought up, I don't know exactly where or when or how they want those. I think it's a good idea for the people of Winnebago or people who come here to have adequate picnic tables, either in a memorial park or somewhere up around the walking path. But I guess I'm going to have more information or more input to where they should be put. We're not going to guess where to put them. Anybody have any input on that?
There are a whole bunch up at the library.
All right, we have someone that just called in. If you could identify yourself, please.
Sorry, that's Nick Half. I accidentally hung up on you.
That's all right, thanks, Nick. So Sally,
hey, where were the tables?
I said there are several up at the park by the library.
Yes, there are. Year. Yes. Okay. Fine. I'll do that. Okay, that takes care of that. And how about the parking next to the village hall? We're going to do that, or we're going to scrap it, Mike?
Well, Chad was kind enough to give me a sketch here last week, which I intended to forward over to you, and I think it should be a topic brought up at the next community development meeting.
Okay, fine. Thank you so very much. Well, I guess that takes care of me, Frank.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kimes, and we'll move on to village attorney.
Did we get a new caller?
We did. It was Nick Half calling back in.
No, but I thought there was one while Don was calling or talking.
Right, that was Nick Half. He just happened to come in, but that's it.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Mantle Development lawsuit. Went to court for the first case management conference, and Attorney Art Keelty from Reno Zom is representing Alan Tanner, Mantle Development Group. He has until January 24th of 2020 to file an answer, and our next court date, answer or other pleading.
2021.
I'm sorry?
January 24th of 2021.
No, to file an answer.
Right.
January 24th of 2020 to file an answer.
Right past. That's right past.
I know, he had until then to file an answer.
Oh.
I'm sorry, September 24th I keep looking at my notes and I'm thinking, why are they saying 2021? September 24th of 2020 to file an answer. And then we go back to court October 29th of 2020. And so he's got a few more days to file an answer or other pleading. He did ask me what the village wanted, and I said, it's in the complaint. I mean, I was nice, but I mean, that was the gist of it. He is going to speak to, he said basically he doesn't want to do anything more, Mr. Tanner. And I said, well, is he going to give us the land? And he said he would be talking to him about that. Not to say that that's something the village would be forced to accept, but we have to evaluate what our circumstances, and if we are able to get a judgment against him, then how are we going to enforce that judgment, monetary judgment against him in New Zealand? So I told him it would be better if sooner rather than later. He gave me some indication of what was going to be happening because the village has been waiting a long time, and if he did something fairly quickly, they might be more amenable to him rather than before we spend any more attorney fees and drag this matter out. So I'll keep you posted, but September 24th is when the due date is for him to give me something.
All right, thanks, Mary. I just have a quick thing for you. We had talked about the indemnity agreement with the village of Pecatonica, and I was authorized to sign that indemnity agreement after you reviewed that agreement. And I don't know if you had a chance to review that or not.
I did see that came. I will take a look at it. I had not. I had given them a form. So I'll check that tomorrow and then I'll email you. But I think it was our form, should be in our format, but I'll double check it.
I'm pretty sure they did adopt that one because I know they had their own form to begin with, but I think they then used yours, but I just want to make sure they didn't make any changes to it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else for a village attorney? Okay, we'll go on to Finance Committee. Mr. Graham.
Hi, this is Jeremy Graham here calling for Finance Committee here. The budget itself is going as well as can be expected. Thank you very much for everyone to watching the spending as we continue to be in an unknown world, trying to minimize the best that we can. As we get closer to December, if we realize that we do have a lot more, which we should have a lot more than anticipated, that we start looking at those purchases that we were holding off on till the end. Moving on to number 2, Gill's disposal. We really just had that on there to make sure it was discussed, and it has been talked about in multiple other places. So we're just going to scratch that one and move on.
I can give you a quick update. I have not heard back from Josh Kraft. The last time I emailed him was in July. He mentioned he was going on vacation the last week of July and he would get hold of me in August. I had not heard from him in August, so I sent an email today to him and have not heard back, so I'll let you know as soon as I hear from him.
Perfect, thank you.
Welcome.
The third one is regarding turning on the water late fees. This has been in discussion for the last couple months, and it was discussed at the finance meeting, and this is coming from committee, looking to be a vote to start the late fees effective the November 15th bill. So let me talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go for discussions if we would like. The November 15th bill would be for the month of October, the October usage. That is the due date for that bill, and that is when the late fee would be established. It would be a late fee for any balance still remaining on the November 15th. That will give our community members a little over 30 days to get their affairs in order. Based off of the information that we saw, a lot of people were not necessarily paying their bills on time, but they were paying it shortly between the 30 days and 60 days, which is good because it significantly drops. But there are still quite a few who are paying, who are taking 60, 90, 120 days to pay. After talking with Kelly and Sally and the committee, It sounds like there are, from our understanding, there's not a lot of people who have been affected by COVID in the fact in which they are unable to pay their bills, which is the reason why we waived the late fee to begin with.
Okay. So this is coming from committee, so we do not need a second. Any additional discussion regarding this motion?
This is Mike McKinnon. When we implemented this, was this just our graciousness, or was there actually state mandates indicating that we needed to do that?
I'm not aware of any state mandates that required us to do it. I think we did it because other agencies were also doing this for various expenses, so no, there was not a mandate at the time from the state of Illinois or the federal. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Keim,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan. Yes.
All right, so that's approved unanimously.
Frank, can I ask a question about that? Do you want it in some written form, such as a resolution, as a follow-up, just so that there's something in writing? Because it was an ordinance, as I recall, it was contained in, and I realize it said until changed by the board, but just something in writing?
Absolutely, Mary, that's a good point. We should have it in writing, so a resolution would be appropriate. In essence, it would just be effectively ending it for the November 15th billing period of 2020.
Now, the only question I would have on that is how long is that going to take to prepare? Because there was a hope that we would put a message on the next bill that went out that basically was kind of the warning that late fees would be starting to accumulate again.
It's been approved already.
I was going to just say, if you make it that, and whether it's a separate motion, I don't think we haven't voted on this one yet, I believe. So if someone even amends it to say that and incorporate that information in a resolution with the authorization for the village president to sign it, I can have that to Frank in a couple of days.
They did vote on that, Mary.
So we just approved it, but we can do as we did before, just have another motion, authorize me to sign a resolution to that effect. And then Mary can prepare it and we'll have it ready. So if someone wants to make that motion.
I'll make that motion to create the resolution within the next couple of days.
So from Mrs. O'Rourke, do we have a second?
Mike McKinnon will second.
All right, thank you. Any additional discussion?
Does that include the president signing it, or that it's available for the next meeting?
No, that motion would include the signature of Frank, president.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
The only other thing the board should know is that I think Kelly has to do she has to check with our software provider to make sure it's as simple as turning them back on again and 15% on the balance due. I would hope that the software would work that way, and I would expect it to, but we don't want to get to manual billing. So in the event that it turns into something more than we know at this point, we may have to amend it. That's the only catch. But I think Kelly was going to try to get that answer in the next day anyway.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Keim?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, so that's approved unanimously.
All right, moving on to number 4 and 5, the Cures Act and the approval of the COVID-19 expenses. They kind of go hand in hand here, so we're knocking them out at the same time. As we're all aware, with the reimbursement from the state, unfortunately, is a reimbursement, so we have to purchase the items first, and then after the paperwork is done, we get reimbursed. Which actually also goes into number 6, which we'll talk about in a minute here. So the $4,541 is the construction expenses that dealt with the COVID improvements for the Village Hall. That is not the damage from the hail. Those are those additional features, the camera, the new glass, the fancy push button to unlock the door, all of that stuff. So as we have to pay for it first before we get reimbursed, this is coming from committee to go out of 2 different accounts. And again, with a full intent to put the money directly back into these accounts as soon as we get reimbursed from the state. It is not coming out of these funds permanently, as we should be reimbursed. The first is the office maintenance fund, and I have the number for you if you would like.
Go.
0141661.
And how much
the general
goes there?
fund? 50/50. So let's bring out a calculator.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. And the other 50% is from the O&M contingency fund. 5144833. And again, with the full intent of putting the money directly back into those 2 accounts as soon as we get reimbursed.
All right. So that's coming from committee, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Any discussion regarding this motion? All right. If there's no discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Kine,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
All right, moving on to number 6, the supplemental appropriation. As there is money coming in and going out all over the place here, we obviously created the budget before the year. If we continue to spend money that we should be getting reimbursed, we will be over 100% of our allocated funds prior to that happening. So this is not a vote thing, but we need to look at figuring out how to do supplemental appropriation to be able to absorb this new additional income for the permits that we weren't expecting from the revenue side, as well as the temporary expenses of the additional COVID-related expenses. Sally, is there anything else I missed on that you want to?
I believe I made a little cheat sheet that's on the intranet. I'm sorry, I haven't been on there to verify that, but we've had just many things this year. The hail damage, we have received so far $56,721. So we've received that in, but we don't have that expense in our budget to pay the vendors when they do those repairs. So that's why we would need to amend our current budget and so on with the remaining items on the list. And we can do a supplemental appropriations ordinance as long as for your money, as you indicated, Sally, that we're either getting or that which is anticipated to be obtained. We do have to have a public hearing on the proposed supplemental appropriations ordinance. So I can work in conjunction with you. The last time we did one of these was 2013. Prior to that, I think it was 2007 that we needed one. but we do have to
Yep.
spell out exactly what amounts or what estimated amounts. I know we had some discussion about, could we put everything we hope that we're getting as far as reimbursement? And no, I think that's a little bit extreme, but we need to certainly, whatever we think we're going to be getting reimbursed or approximately what we're going to be getting reimbursed. And when we have that public hearing, it's a 10-day one. So we have to publish it so that the people have at least 10 days notice. That's how that works.
So Mary, when we have that notice, would we be able to have the hearing the same evening as a board meeting?
Yes.
And then, so then we could have the hearing 10 minutes before the board meeting and then vote on that afterwards. Okay.
Correct.
I guess my suggestion would be that we do anticipate these expenses. Now, the CARES Act, we are allowed to receive up to $127,926. That's what's been appropriated for the Village of Winnebago. We may not utilize all of that. So that is something that has been awarded to us if we meet the criteria and have those expenses. So if you believe in your legal opinion that we should not ask for that full amount and appropriate the full amount, so be it. But that's one of the things that we're going to be asking for, is for part of those funds to be there. So I would say that we should probably try and get this on the October board meeting agenda and then have our public hearing that same evening prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, we can pad it as to what we think we're going to get, but it was or actually going to have to be reimbursed. But it was just my point that it was my understanding that we're probably not going to come anywhere near that number. And if we're not, then I don't know that we really should be asking for that full amount, because I don't know. The language reads that what you anticipate receiving, not what you might be eligible. So I think we just have to make a good faith stab at what amount do we think is the maximum that we could possibly ask for reimbursement for.
And just a quick question, if let's say we think we're going to get $15,000 or $20,000 after we add everything up, we say, okay, 25,000 may be a good estimate. We end up looking like we're going to get 50,000. We can have another public hearing and ask for another opportunity to adjust that. Is that correct?
We could, and I mean, I was not suggesting that we be that tight with it. I'm just saying if we're eligible for 123 and we know we're not going to get anywhere near there, then maybe we say 75. If we think we're going to get 30, we ask for 75. I just think that in keeping with the intent of the statute, that if we know there's no way we're going to get anywhere near 123 or whatever the number is, that we just don't go that high.
The concern I would have, playing devil's advocate, is if we have an ordinance or something, a supplemental appropriation that says 75,000, the state of Illinois could look at that and say, Winnebago is not going to utilize the remaining $54,000. We're going to put that elsewhere. So I want to make sure that if we have an appropriation, that we still have some language somewhere that says that we still may have the ability to have other costs by December 31st of 2020. I just don't want the state of Illinois to look at that and say you locked yourself into that appropriation.
Okay. And I mean, you can direct me otherwise. If you think you want to use your full figure, that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just looking at the statute saying if you're not going to be anywhere near that, but you're thinking maybe there's going to be something. And if there's maybe going to be something, we can put it.
Won't that go over 2 budget years technically anyway? Because we don't have to expend that for reimbursement in 2020, do we? So we could, you know, add 50,000, say, in this part, and then the next 75, couldn't we add to next year's budget?
I think the expenditure must occur by December 31st of 2020. The way we have
December 30th, actually.
It's December 15th, but they were talking about trying to extend it to the 31st. But yeah, right now.
As Kelly was saying, that's weird. They said December 30th. Don't ask us why it didn't say December 31, since there's 31 days, but it is what it is. I don't know if maybe that's a weekend or something.
No, it's a Wednesday is the 30th, the 31st is a Thursday, so But thank you, Kelly, for clarifying that.
But it's a holiday, maybe.
I don't know.
Well, we have a lot of new holidays coming up that I'm going to talk about. We at least have one more that I'll talk about it further on in our thing. So you never know when a holiday is going to pop up.
And Sally, is Sally Bennett, do you have all of the information? You've got all of the information, so you would be pretty much the contact person, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do have to fine tune some of it. I just wanted to have basic idea so that the board understood what we're looking at. It's a lot. It's not just a little bit. So we definitely need to do this.
Yes, because in the past, when we've had it, it's been more like there was a grant that was received that no one anticipated or something of that nature. But this is for a whole number of categories and substantial amounts.
Chalk it up to 2020.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right. Anything else from Finance Committee?
Just a couple more quick things. Where'd it go? One is we discussed the generator thing as well. The purchase of a generator. We're looking at seeing how funds are looking at the end of the year, if that's something we can do, and if not, trying to incorporate that into the budget next year. And finally, we are looking at getting another check deposit reader for the village in order to increase efficiency and reduce COVID and other circumstances for $210 a year for the next 2 years.
Okay.
210 per year?
Per year, correct. Pending any questions, that concludes finance.
All right. Thank you. I see we don't have anything for Police Committee.
That's correct.
All right. And the next item will be Liquor Commission. The Liquor Commission did meet and discuss a modification of the liquor ordinance. Currently, in order to receive a liquor license, a business that wants to sell liquor to be consumed on premises must be a restaurant that serves a complete meal. And because of modifications that have been made to the liquor ordinance, the Liquor Commission believed that that is something that should have been changed. And now they are recommending, and they did vote on it, to bring to this board change in that. And Mary, I believe Mary did put together a new category G, and I guess you can briefly tell us about that.
Yes, that was, the draft was included in the September 12th email that I sent to all of you. And as I explained in that email, we had actually talked at Liquor Commission about maybe just changing some language in the A and B ordinance or classifications. Class A meaning alcoholic liquor being served, and Class B being beer and wine being served. But the problem there was Class A and B are specific to restaurants. And so then the restaurant is defined in the ordinance. And we all know we need to redo the liquor ordinance. So we've been putting these little Band-Aids on it. So basically this is specific to, in essence, allow for a video gaming parlor so that it would not have any requirement in terms of a complete meal or any sort of meal. It just basically says that it would authorize the retail, the sale at retail of alcoholic liquor for consumption on the premises only of a video gaming parlor. And a video gaming parlor would be defined as an establishment whose principal operation is the operation of video gaming terminals, and where the sale of alcoholic liquor and any revenue that's derived from that is just incidental to that purpose. So this makes for a true video gaming parlor. When Kelly's came in, Kelly's Cafe, they had came in with what we considered a complete meal. What is being served now, of course, I have no idea because I'm not there, but this particular establishment came to us and said, we have an interest and we don't anticipate that we would want to be serving a full meal. We would want to have some beer and wine and some maybe cheese and crackers, basically snack food. You'll notice I did not make it where there'd be a category for a gaming parlor that wanted just beer and wine and a category that wanted full alcoholic liquor. Obviously, I can change that if you want, but I just thought it was easier to say it's for a gaming parlor. If they have alcoholic liquors or just beer and wine, it's one class and it's the $1,500. Where I got the $1,500 amount is that's what it is for Class A, for serving of all alcoholic liquors, not just beer and wine.
Mary, the one concern that I have, and I did email this to you, is
Mhm.
we have a business that doesn't primarily want to be video gaming, but it wants to be able to serve wine and beer, maybe wine tastings, beer tastings, sample the area of wines and beers. They may or may not want to have video gaming, or they may not be able to get video gaming for a year because of the backlog. Then I think we need to have a Class H that allows for a business to apply for a liquor license without having it tied into video gaming, just so we have that opportunity for a business to come in to just have drinks and have snacks. And I know this particular business wants to coordinate with other area restaurants to have their food come in at different times for different events. So I think if we could do another category and not necessarily tie it into video gaming, but they could do video gaming later on for that category H, but I just don't want them to be locked into having to have video gaming.
And would you anticipate that if a given establishment comes in and gets a Class H license and then they do bring in video gaming, that they're going to convert then to a Class G?
That's what I would suggest. Right. Just because, and the other thing, Mary, we can't get them to have a video gaming license before they apply for a liquor license. So we'll either need to put in there, they all have to apply for category H. And then when they get a video gaming, they can switch over to category G, because they have to have their liquor license from us to get a liquor license from the state. And then they have to apply to the state video gaming after they have a liquor license. If they want to wait to open their business, so be it, until they get the video gaming, but they may want to open a business before then. You need to have an active liquor license no matter what to get a video gaming license. So that's why I think we need to allow a separate category for non-video gaming, but to allow them to serve alcoholic beverages without a complete meal. And I think I did email Amber today, and she did confirm that there are other two establishments that they have is more towards video gaming, but this one, they're looking less at video gaming, more towards the sale of the alcoholic beverages with the wine and the beer and those types of things. So they will be looking for a video gaming license, but again, it may take some time for them to get it, but they do want to open their business without video gaming to begin with.
Okay.
So what Liquor Commission had voted on was to allow for, in essence, taking away the language of a complete meal. So by having a category G and now a category H, I think that still encompasses what the Liquor Commission discussed and approved. We need to have it in two separate categories rather than modifying Class A and B, as you mentioned. So what I would ask is that the trustees tonight consider approving an ordinance an ordinance allowing for a Class G and a Class H liquor license. And then it would allow for a business that wants to be in the village to be able to apply for a liquor license if that is approved.
And if that is done that way, Frank, because we only have a Class G language in front of us, that I think where we've done it before is that it would be, that they would authorize, say, the village president to sign it within so many days after they receive it. That way they would be able to see the language for both the Class G and the Class H. Because obviously we just have Class G in front of us right now.
Right. So, and that can be made in a motion too, that, as you just said.
I guess we need to know what the thoughts are of the board as far as this whole concept of not mandating or having these situations where people could have snacks in essence and serve alcohol with or without video gaming.
This is Mike McKinnon. I mean, I know that, as you indicated, you need to do some temporary modifications to this before we get a total rewrite. And most of this was written upon the premise way back when there was a minimum food requirement as far as a percentage of food to percentage of alcohol, which we have rescinded several years ago. And I think that some of that original standing language just continues to complicate this matters, because, again, whether somebody's serving a full meal or snacks or no snacks, how much of a bearing does it really have on the type of license it's going to be?
Right. And that's what we found is with the applicant, normally we would have looked at the applicant and said, yeah, we think that you're a good candidate, but then reading that specific language, it prevents them from operating here in the village. So it is one of those things that we do need to modify, and we try and catch those as we can, but that one we just didn't catch when we were looking at other changes to the categories.
I would say my opinion from what has been described to us and what the concept of this establishment is, it would seem that we need to try to find a suitable way to accommodate them, because it sounds like it could have a good concept.
Do we have a motion, or do you want to table this?
I guess my preference would be is I'd rather see the language before we approved it. What do we have a time sensitivity here?
The applicant or the parties that would like to apply have already sent in their application for review, and they've done a very, very good job of putting their application together. We don't see any deficiencies in the draft application, so they would want to act sooner rather than later. We were hoping to have a liquor commission meeting this Thursday night if the village board would have approved the modification. Obviously, if the village board needs more time or whatever, then that's what we're going to have to do. So it's really up to the board to make sure what they want to do, but we were hoping to have this approved tonight if possible, but again, we need to make sure the trustees are understanding of what we're requesting. And
I will make the motion. This is Jeremy Graham.
okay, so your motion is to approve the ordinance classification G as presented, but then also to authorize the village president to sign category H after the trustees have had an opportunity to review it. And I would just say Mr. Graham, if you want to put in there the number of days after it's presented to them, like 5 days or however many days? 7 days?
Let's go 7 days.
Okay. As Attorney Gaziano said, that's been done many times before where we've had that language. that
Yes.
Everybody would receive that. So we have a motion. Do we have a second for that motion?
Stan Malagranda seconds.
All right, thank you, Mr. Malagranda.
We will need a a number for that ordinance, and it will be 2020-10.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion regarding the pending motion?
I just guess I want to make it clear that it is 7 days after it's presented to the board members, provided no objection is received.
Correct.
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 Do you have some idea of when that would be available though, so we have some idea when to look at our email?
Yeah, I would, because of the time sensitivity of this, I'm going to probably work on it tomorrow afternoon. Because Frank had sent me an email, I think it was a day or so ago, about the new, or today maybe, the new category. And the new category won't be hard. So just in the next day or so, you can be looking for it.
Are the license fees drafted in this most recent revision comparable to other establishments, whether it's a full meal or a partial meal or?
Yes, it's based on the Class A, which is alcoholic liquor in a restaurant. And we took away the food requirement and all of that, the percentages, and that's where that $1,500 comes in.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're in discussion here.
Mr. Graham, go ahead.
Okay, since we're in discussion here, we as the board still have to approve them all anyway. And that is correct?
The board has to approve the video gaming licenses, but it is the village president that, based on a recommendation from the Liquor Commission, will give either a yay or nay as to a liquor license application.
Okay. So it's not just a free-for-all. There'll still be those checks and balances in place. In addition, as it is an ordinance, we can always amend ordinances, and we need to redo the Liquor Commission, or not the Liquor Commission, the liquor license as a whole anyway.
Liquor ordinance as a whole, yes. Anytime somebody gives a liquor license application, it goes to Kelly at the village office. Kelly first gets it to me to do a legal review to determine if there's anything that's missing. And this one didn't have anything that was missing, which was great. And then there's a Liquor Commission meeting, whereas it's looked at by the Liquor Commission. Liquor Commission makes a recommendation to a village president, who's also the Liquor Commissioner, and then the Liquor Commissioner reviews it and makes a decision one way or the other to whether or not to grant it. Now, in the past, we had it where there was, when the liquor ordinance was originally passed, it was a maximum of 7 liquor licenses. That's been changed, of course, I believe to 20 now. So that's really not an issue. But anything can be changed at any time by the village board.
Perfect.
Mr. Kimes, I know you were going to make a comment before.
Yes, I really want to know who wants the Liquor Commission, or wants the liquor license. Or are you at liberty to tell us or not?
Well, we had Amber Pena and Vince attend a meeting at Liquor Commission where they were requesting a modification to our liquor license category for a business that they wanted to open.
Okay, this is for basically new business, correct?
It is a new business that would come to the village. Correct.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? All right, hearing no other discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan. Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Keim.
Yes.
All right, so that's approved unanimously. So just so everybody is aware, Mary said that she will try and have it ready tomorrow. Look in your inboxes sometime tomorrow afternoon or the next morning. You'll have 7 days from that date that you receive it to object to it. If there are no objections after that 7th day, then I'm authorized to go ahead and sign the ordinance as drafted.
And certainly if you don't have an objection, but you have a suggestion, if there's some better wording or something, then please feel free to email that to me as well. And just so we're clear, it's 7 calendar days, I'm assuming.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to my items. And the first one, you've got my report. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. Second item is Comcast providing service to certain government entities in the village. And just wanted to give you an update that Jeff White, Kelly Simons, Chad Insko, and I had another telephone conference with Pat Pierce, Joan Sage, and a couple other people from Comcast. And they provided us with an estimate or what they would charge us monthly for the system, and then also what the installation could be. So I forwarded to you information this morning as to what those costs are, and wanted to get your input as to whether you wanted to discuss it at the board level, have it referred to a committee to review, how you wanted to handle that. If you,
This is Mike McKinnon. I mean, conceptually, you know, I think it's a path we need to look at. I think there's a few unanswered issues that probably need to be taken up either by the administration committee or something. In my former business, I happened to utilize a similar service from Comcast. I was very satisfied with it. Certainly at a gigabyte of speed versus, you know, 100 megabytes of speed where we were at. I don't know if there's an option somewhere in between there that's more economically friendly, because I certainly had a whole lot more phones at a lower cost than what this package is being presented. Granted, I didn't have to support a couple different locations when we did that. Certainly, you know, the speed is very nice. I don't know that the village transmits any near that type of data to have to be at that level to find out if there's a more economical option at a little lower cost. And certainly, I would like to see, you know, at what point do we not have cancellation charges on existing contracts before we move forward spending at a higher level than we are currently.
that's fine. So your recommendation is that we either have admin team or basically the same group of people. I would suggest if it's not going to be a standing committee, that maybe Kelly, Jeff, Chad, and I, and if someone else from the board wants to jump in, that's fine. But and Sally Bennett, I think were you involved in that telephone conference? I can't remember. Okay. You know, the 4 of us or 5 of us could look at that. So whatever.
Yeah, I conceptually, I support it. It just seems like you know, we're already tight on funds or whatever, and having to pay cancellation fees to jump into something. And if our cancellation fees are, you know, only 6 months from now, and, you know, just look to see if there's some mid-range packages that also do some of the, get us better than what we're at today, but is it a more reasonable price? I know even with the MediaCom, they offer, 50 megabytes of speed, 100 megabytes of speed. There's varying degrees of it. It's just, again, are we getting the best value for the dollar available?
Sure. So I know Sally did send out an email letting us know that we do have a cancellation charge. So I don't know if she was able to find when we can cancel it, but that's something I think, Kelly and Sally can work on and try and find that out for us.
Kelly did send those to me today, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read the bottom line to see what would happen if we cancel.
That's okay. If you don't mind, if you don't mind forwarding, we can take a look at that and make sure Mary gets a copy, because we're going to need her opinion probably on that too.
I know that the renewal happened. One of them was renewed in April of 2019 and the other one in July. So not as long ago as I had originally thought.
Well, I can support the Comcast system. I am happy to see that they quoted the Polycom phones, which are a fraction of the cost of the Cisco phones and some of the other ones, and we had very good service. We had good reliability. We had good sound quality. So as far as the system and the company or whatever, I've got no qualms about that. It's just, is there another medium range option that might be more cost favorable?
I think that's a very appropriate question to ask, Mike. So I have no problem contacting Mr. Pierce and his group and going over that and any other thoughts that people have. So what I would suggest is, Sally, as you get the information, forward it to us. We'll take a look and see about Frontier, MediaCom, Sundog IT, what contracts we have, when they're up, what type of fees we have to pay to cancel early. And then we can get from Comcast any other type of data ranges that you provide to us.
Another item to look in there. I didn't read it in full detail, but if I read it clearly, it almost appeared that their system may accommodate a teleconferencing call system, so there may be another potential offset to offset the, what we're currently paying for the GoToMeeting software. So that may be another thing that narrows that gap a little bit.
He did explain that, and what he said is they could accommodate, I believe, up to 50 people at one time calling in. You can record it, but I don't believe it supports video.
Okay.
So I mean, it I think would be better than what we had through Sundog, because I know with Sundog we were allowed to have callers calling in, but I'm not sure they allowed up to 50 people. We had some issue our initial time. So it would allow for some conferencing, but not for a conference like tonight.
Okay.
This is Jeff White. I just want to bring up the fact the reliability of the systems have to be there. With the current changeover of our report writing software and that's internet and cloud-based, we've had multiple problems in the past before we switched over with MediaCom's systems going down, having to reset servers, reset internet routers, and that's something, not to say like if it happens on the weekends, having to have somebody come in here to reset that and have the inability to use those systems during that time really doesn't work well for us. I mean, our whole system is going to be run off a cloud-based server, cloud-based system out of the city of Rockford. And if we lose that connection in any way, shape, or form, our ability to do some of our work is going to be limited.
I know that the speeds would be more effective for getting the information out for the laptops and the squad cards. Is that right, Jeff?
No, that's basically going to be for our video systems and the systems that are here at the office. The systems that we have in the car run off of a cellular card, but they do run through a VPN through the office. So there is, one system relies on the other. So if we lose a system here, we lose somewhat of our connectivity through the VPN. So we wouldn't be able to use the systems in the car as well. So and that's our ability to run people's names, run license plates, run those types of things that we get through leads and NCIC and those types of things. If those systems are down, could we do it through the dispatch center? verbally, yes, but it would be a little more cumbersome than what we're used to.
So does anyone else, or does anyone have a different idea other than Trustee McKinnon, that we should have another conversation with Comcast, ask a few more questions, understand what our contract terms are with our current providers, and then just report back to the board at the October meeting? Is everyone okay with that? Anyone wants?
I assume we've had conversations with MediaCom, and there's no way to upgrade what we have, I assume. Is that right?
We did talk to MediaCom before. We haven't talked to them recently. I know we are limited as to what they can provide to us.
Okay, well, I could hear the frustration in Jeff's voice, so it's obvious we're having some real issues with our communication. So I think we want to keep pushing this along for sure. I mean, I kind of took a step back when I saw the price increase too, but at the end of the day, we need that technology, we need that reliability. So I think we need to keep moving it forward.
Just to point out one other.
I think it's important to realize too that if we continue to move towards working from home in these times, if that VPN, the internet service here at the office goes down, you cannot do any work at home.
And
just to point out one other thing is that they have what they termed is their flagship router, which over the past few months has just shuts down. And when I've called them about it, they cautiously admitted that they have known problems with it, but they have no plans to offer any solution for it at this time.
And that's with MediaCom?
Yes. Okay. I think in the course of 3 weeks, it went down, I don't remember, 3 or 4 times in a short period of time.
Right.
So.
Well, I recall I know it was 2 Fridays in a row, then it fell on a Wednesday the following week.
Mm-hmm.
We had a weekend where it went down. So it's been at least 4 times and 4 times in probably a month and a half.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable.
No.
Just
and,
looking
when it goes. Oh.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Sally Bennett, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that when I read it, I felt like there are problems that are going to be resolved instead of just where we're at now, we'll move ahead. But also, we've never had anyone that was able to put together all of our needs in one package. That's why we have all these little groups here and there, because just as a need popped up, we just had to focus on that and not the big picture. And this seems much better for the big picture.
Yep.
And I think you have to look at it too, even if you increase your speeds through MediaCom, if the reliability is not there, that speed is not there either.
Right. So any other trustees have a comment on how you want us to move forward? So the next step will be for us to have another conference call with Pat Pierce and his group. We'll let everybody know when we're going to do that. Sally Bennett, if you want to join, you're welcome to join. If there is a particular trustee that wants to join, let me know. We don't want to have to post the meeting, or if at least you have some ideas, we can present those at the teleconference. So if there's nothing else, let's move on. We have already done number 3. Number 4 is appointment of Bill Emmert to the zoning board. Bill Emmert's position, his term has expired, and I would like to, what we've been doing is we have 7 members on the zoning board, and we've just been appointing them to a 7-year term. His term is up, and he has agreed to fill that for another 7 years. And I would just like the board's approval of his appointment.
That's just a verbal, isn't it?
It's what?
That's just a verbal, isn't it? That's not a motion.
We don't technically need a motion, do we, Mary? Just if anyone, Mary, you're muted.
Sorry. It's with the advice and consent of the board, and I think sometimes you've done it where you just get a consensus, or does anybody have an objection? Sometimes you've taken a vote. There doesn't technically have to be a vote.
Does anyone have an objection to Mr. Emmert being on the zoning board?
No objection.
No objection.
All right.
No objection.
All right, so not hearing any objection, he will be appointed for that time. I also asked Randy Cook if he wanted to serve, and he said he would decline that appointment for another 7-year time period. So if any of you who are on this call know of someone that may fit the bill for being on zoning, please let me know. I would like to have somebody in mind and in place for the October board meeting so that we can have that person appointed at the time. All right, move on to election information. As you know, the elections are coming up. We have several people or several seats, positions that will be open for vote come 2021. And I believe Kelly has put in everybody's box who is up for election, the information. We have the village president's position, we have the village clerk's position, and we have several of the trustee positions. Some will be 2-year positions, some will be 4-year positions, depending upon whether you were appointed or whether you were elected when your term comes up. I believe the first day that you can have petitions, you can start signing is September 22nd. And I don't know, I didn't read through my packet, but there will be a minimum number of signatures that you will need. And if it's not in the packet, then Kelly or Sally Joe might have that information for us. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that that is coming up now. And if you could let me know if you intend to run for your position or not run, that would allow me to know if we need to look for someone else to try and run for that position. Go on to ordinance pertaining to the local cure program. You should have received in your packet that ordinance. And we have a draft of the ordinance that was prepared by IML. They had a sample draft that we utilized, and it allows us to utilize the funds through the local coronavirus remediation emergency support program through the state of Illinois. And we'll need to have that approved. So if we could have a motion to adopt an ordinance pertaining to the local cure program.
Ordinance 2020-11.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Mike McKinnon will motion to approve the ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Second, Julie.
All right, thank you. Any discussion regarding the ordinance?
I can just tell you that the content of the ordinance is in accordance with the explanations that we were given as to how the program works when Kelly and I were part of the seminars.
Any other discussion? Okay, there's no discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan. Yes. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Keim,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda.
Yes.
All right, that's approved unanimously, so I'll go ahead and sign that. We'll move on to appointment of village president to the PSAP board on behalf of the village of Winnebago. As you may remember, we had an IGA with the county of Winnebago to provide 911 service to all municipalities except for the city of Rockford, who has their own PSAP. And as part of the IGA, it talks about creation of an advisory board. And in the body of the agreement, it says that it shall consist of one member appointed by resolution from the governing authority of each of the parties hereto, plus the Winnebago County Sheriff or his designee. So at this point, I'd be asking to be the designee or the person appointed to the board by this board. And we need a motion to approve that resolution.
I probably should know the answer, but can you define the acronym of PSAP?
It's a
Public Safety Answering Point.
correct. I was drawing a blank on the first P.
I will make the motion to appoint President Eubank to represent the village of Winnebago.
Second
This is Jeremy Graham. I will. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so Mr. McKinnon made a first motion. Was Mr. Kimes about to make the second motion?
No, I'll second it.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Kimes did second it. Okay. Any discussion?
Just so we're clear, it's for a resolution. It says here 20-013. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the City of Love's part. Sorry.
Right.
So are we then, it's just an oral authorization then?
Well, I think we need a resolution to do that. So Mary, if you want to prepare the resolution.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was thumbing through it. I was trying to figure out if we needed that. Okay, I'll do that.
Is that part of the motion?
Yes, I will amend the motion to include authorizing the village attorney to draft that resolution.
And Sally, what number will that have, or do you assign that now?
Well, we didn't give that last one.
No, we didn't.
No, you're gonna draft one.
Yeah. So this will be the second resolution this evening. So just Sally, Joe, and Mary just get together on what numbers are going to be.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get it yet tonight, Mary.
Okay.
Any additional discussion? All right, if there's no additional discussion, roll call, please.
Writing. Sorry.
That's right.
Ms. Morgan. Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Keim.
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
All right, so that's approved. We'll go on to the next item, which is Halloween or trick or treating. And again, we don't know what's going to be happening with the state of Illinois and with the pandemic that's going on and what may be declared as an emergency by the governor or enacted by our legislators. The latest we have, Kelly was able to forward to me information from Annette Fulgenzi at the state of Illinois saying that haunted houses are not allowed. She said trick or treating, the legal department's working on that. I wanted to put it on there just to get an idea from the trustees as to what you wanted to do. I mean, my opinion is if we don't have the state of Illinois or anybody telling us that we cannot do it, I would be in favor of allowing it to happen. I believe that each homeowner can participate or not participate by turning a light on or light off. And each homeowner can take the necessary steps to make sure that they're properly providing treats to the children that want to participate.
This is Mike McKinnon. I would make the motion that provided there are no restrictions at the state level, that we allow it to proceed. And as you indicated, individual residents can choose to participate or not participate by turning off their lights.
You know, it'd be nice to go a little slower. I couldn't write that fast.
I am making the motion that provided there are no restrictions at the state level that would supersede our ability, that we support the opportunity for the Halloween and trick-or-treating to go forward. And then I made a further comment that each resident has the ability to participate or not participate by, as Frank indicated, certainly turning off their lights.
Trustee Kimes, I second it.
All right, any discussion? Ms. Bennett, you have your hand up.
In a typical year, the village decides on what times the trick or treating is, and I don't know if that's something that, you know, homeowners might be concerned about, how late it could go if there are no restrictions, or I just thought it was worth mentioning.
I didn't include that, Sally, but I would have expected that we would have defined the timeline as normal or whatever. I mean, we would establish that timeline to keep it restricted as we've done in the past.
I believe it's 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
I don't remember. Does the police department set it? Because I think it used to be, what, 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock?
It was too long.
Yeah.
As far as I know, this is Jeff White, we have never set a time frame. We just go on recommendations by, you know, we have never actually put that information out. I think the village itself has done that. So you can make any time frame you want, I think. I think the movement has been to go to an earlier time frame so there's more daylight for the younger children, then you don't have people out running around in the darkness and having traffic issues and people running out in traffic and those types of things.
In the past, the people in the office have just decided, because there really aren't any parameters. So it's open-ended. A lot of times we'll look and see what everybody else is doing in neighboring communities.
The trustees can set a time if you want to set it. So if that is something that you want to do, you can make that determination now. You can make that determination later. We have an October board meeting as well. We can definitely address the current motion tonight, knowing that we will have Halloween as long as there's no intervention. You know, as to the time, that's something that can either be decided tonight or can be decided at the next meeting, or however you want to decide that.
I can tell you there's a lot of discussion on the Winnebago community page over this issue. So you may want to consider, if you're going to have hours, maybe letting them be known sooner rather than later, but that's just a suggestion.
Sure.
This is Jeremy Graham. I'll make a motion for 5 to 7:30.
We gotta finish one motion.
Right, we have a pending motion, so let's do this. Let's finish our pending motion, and then we'll take up a second motion as to the time of the event. So any further discussion on the current motion regarding having trick-or-treating in the village, as long as we're not superseded by state? Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's have a roll call, please.
O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan. Yes.
All right, so that's approved unanimously. I believe Mr. Graham was going to make a motion as to a time frame.
That is correct. I will make the motion for Halloween trick or treating from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Is it on a weekend this year?
It's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday.
Oh, okay, then that's fine.
Mike McKinnon will second the motion.
Now, is this time frame supposed to be from here on out until it's modified? So every year it'll be from 5 to 7:30, or is the intention just to be for this particular year?
As a parent, I would like to see it just for this year because that's a terrible time frame during the week for parents who work full time. It's a nightmare to get home and try to get people fed and get them out the door. I really liked when we moved it because of weather last year to be on the Saturday.
What time did we do that last year? I remember it moved for the weather.
We did it was like 2 to 4 or 4 to 6 or something like that. It was earlier and it was nice because it was light out. You could see everybody.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that because it was on a weekend, it did work out very well.
People were upset because it was during a football game. I think maybe the Bears game or something. I think we had some complaints about that, but otherwise I think a lot of people were very happy about it.
You can't make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time.
Right.
I'm willing to.
Later.
Go ahead, Mr. Graham. Mr.
This
Graham,
is
go ahead.
Jeremy, and I'm willing to amend my motion if anyone would like to change the time.
Well, I guess, Lori, I guess I would defer to you. I mean, the fact it is a weekend again and it worked out well on a weekend, I mean, I certainly don't have any children to worry about. So, I mean, as a parent, I mean, if it worked out well on a previous Saturday, does it make sense to, maybe move it up a little bit earlier?
That was on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, we
Last
moved
year.
it because of weather last year. I think
Snow.
Yeah, we moved it because of snow, and it was the only time I've enjoyed Halloween. So my suggestion would be that we always have it on the weekend, regardless of when Halloween falls during the week. I don't really care what time on the weekend, because on the weekend I don't have to hurry home from work. But I also only am going to have a child trick-or-treating for probably one more year, so maybe no sweat off my back. But I know that a lot of people commented that they liked it and that the number of trick-or-treaters we got was a lot more doing it earlier on a weekend than versus a weeknight later in the evening.
Exactly.
Based on the conversation, I would say that the recommendation is for this year and this year only, and we can revisit it for future years.
Right.
I would agree.
And we did have complaints. A couple of people complained that they ran out of candy so quickly. They thought it was because the people from Rockford were double dipping. They were going to Rockford trick-or-treating on Halloween, then they came to the village on Saturday as well. And again, some people are happy to have trick-or-treaters. They don't care where they come from. Other people just want the local kids to come for trick-or-treating. So again, as what Mr. Trustee McKinnon said, you can't make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. So, we just have to make our best guess and best decision. So, Mr. Graham, you've got a motion. I believe the request to be that to be from 5 p.m. to 7:30 for this particular Halloween, and we can readdress it next year. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes,
That is
and it was
correct.
seconded by Mr. McKinnon.
Okay. So we need a second?
Mr.
I second.
McKinnon.
Ms. McKinnon, yeah, okay. So any other discussion? Okay, if there's no other discussion, roll call, please.
Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Kime.
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
Ms. Morgan.
Yes.
O'Rourke.
Yes.
All right, so that's approved unanimously. Oh,
Can I interrupt?
yeah,
Mary?
Yes.
Resolution 2020-10R is to reinstate the late fees.
Okay.
11R is to appoint President Eubank to the PSAP.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, thank you for that information. We'll move on to number 9, which is the wage scale review. And I believe this one, Finance Committee has been looking at, and so have other departments, just trying to, I believe, get in line, making sure that what our employees are being paid are, you know, it's within the range of other positions in other municipalities. And so I think this is something that we need to look at. And I guess, Mrs. O'Rourke, if I know you had asked me to put this on my part, I don't know if finance has looked at this or if you believe that admin team should be kind of looking at this, or how you think it.
Well, this really stems from last year at review time. We had the discussion about compensation and people are they really being paid a competitive range? And we didn't have a good feel for across the board, were people in the right salary ranges? And I will say the problem seems to be more acute on the police team. We're really struggling trying to find part-time officers and full-time officers at the current rate. So I know Nick Half has already supplied me with some information there. I don't know how best to go about it, to be honest. If each area needs to kind of do their own and then it goes up to the admin team, maybe that might be the way to look at this. I'm not sure.
Yeah, if anyone has any ideas, you know, it usually does start with the committee. The police committee would look at their own employees and say, okay, we're going to compare them with other employees in other departments, and maybe look at that and then use whatever resources they need to, whether it's talking to our treasurer or our deputy clerk or our clerk, but then coming to the board and making a recommendation. Public Works would do the same thing with their employees. Where we have, where we don't have a committee, really the admin team would be the one to address treasurer, chief of police, maybe the deputy clerk, I suppose. You know, those kinds of things. The admin team could be involved in looking at those. Same thing with the administrative assistant. So what I would do is, you know, we have the budget coming up. We typically would have our reviews now, but we also talked about having the reviews upon the anniversary date. So what we need to do is kind of look at the budget in terms of what raises may be given, and what I would suggest is each department look at their employees and start the process of, do you believe that the employees are being paid the fair amount, and start looking at it from the committee point of view, and then bring it forward to the board if you believe that there needs to be some adjustments. We did that with police. I believe when Chris Keeper was the chairman, I believe we had a modification of the police wages because at that time it was deemed to be very low. So we did raise the minimum up at that point. But it may be time again.
Yeah, and again, I think we just have to arm ourselves with the information, find out where people are relative to competitive ranges out there. And we can't promise that we're going to be able to get everybody in range right away, but at least we have to be better informed on where we fall, I think.
Right, yeah. So, but that's a good point, Julie. We did talk about, we should be looking at pretty much everybody's current wages and where they compare to maybe other organizations, if we can do that. And then you can also reach out, whichever committee it is, you can reach out to the treasurer or the deputy clerk, because they do have their trunk lines where they might be able to put out there and say, hey, we're looking for what a sergeant makes in a police department, or what the public works director or the superintendent of streets and fleets may receive, and kind of get an idea that way of what they're making. And then there are also, when we look for the chief of police amount, there were websites I went to that showed various municipalities and what each of the employees were making in the police department. So I was able to look at each each police department and say, okay, this is what the chief makes, this is what sergeants make. They may have 5 or 10 sergeants, they may have 2 or 3, patrol officers. So you can look at those and get a good idea of what a lot of municipalities around the state are paying their employees.
And in conjunction with that, I think we want to look at full benefit packages, and that might be harder information to get, but I know it's so easy to look at salaries and say I'm underpaid and that maybe you have a much better benefit package. That gets really tricky. I think that gets harder to compare, but I think it's important to remind people whatever benefits they get that they don't see every day or don't think about.
Sure, I mean, that is great because you do have to compare the whole package, not just salary amount, but the other benefits are involved. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at the comparisons. Make sure that you're getting the same information from the other organizations.
And I'm not sure what our resources are in that regard. I don't know how much of that information is detailed and available.
I forget what I looked at, but when we were looking for the chief of police salaries, I was able to go onto a website and they had pretty much all of the municipalities in the state of Illinois, and you could see what officers were making. And I'll have to look at my notes and see if I can find it, but it was a very good resource because you could look up communities that were similar to ours and see what they were paying the different officers and see the number of officers they had underneath the chief and that type of thing. I don't think it didn't detail the benefits. You'd have to contact each municipality and ask them then what benefits they receive.
And the IML doesn't track things like that, do they?
I've not asked, so I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, they're a resource you could email them and just ask if they do that. So I mean, that's something you could task Kelly or Sally or somebody with and see if they can find that information. All right, so let's move on to number 10. I have down boardroom equipment for recording. I think we had this on the agenda before, and I don't know if we had just tabled it or needed more information, but I think Kelly had given us a little bit of information as to what it would cost to have a projector and to have a dedicated, I think, computer for the boardroom to have meetings. I don't know if the board wants to consider this or just take it off of the agenda.
This is Mike McKinnon. I think where we had talked about the last time is at least my personal opinion was if we're in a tight budget situation, it probably wasn't something that I was strong on. However, if with this CURES program, if that's an opportunity to utilize it, and if we don't do something with it, it's just going to move down to some other municipality. It was on that basis that we were going to try to dig into this a little bit further and try to find a value-added package.
Right, and I think you were right, Mike. I think the idea was to see if we felt comfortable that this might fall into a category of the CURES program, or CURES allowing us to get reimbursed. And I don't know if we really compared that to come back with a definite yes or no, but I guess, Kelly, if you could look into that and see if you feel that what we're asking for, I mean, what we're hoping is that we'd be able to utilize it if we have an in-person meeting to still allow residents and others to attend remotely. So we would be sitting, some people could be sitting in the boardroom, like Trustee Graham was in the boardroom for Finance Committee this evening, and now I'm in my office in the village office conducting this. We could have it broadcast and could have several people present. But I guess I'd feel better if we had a little more review to see what equipment we would need and if we can categorize it under a reimbursable part of the CURE or CARES Act. So we'll take that off, and Kelly, if you can just remind me, you and I can talk about this and see what information we can come up with.
Okay.
Let's go on. Thank you. So let's go on to number 11, future meeting dates.
Public Works,
Monday, October 5th at 5 o'clock.
Police,
To be determined.
Finance,
To be determined.
Community Development,
To be determined.
We just had a lot of people exit. Go ahead. Community Development.
4th of July is to be determined, I guess. Liquor,
Liquor to be determined.
Errant Water would be October 12th if needed, right?
Correct.
Admin to be determined. Right?
Correct.
WIPC is October 21st at 5:30.
Yes.
Peck Prairie Pass, September 18th at 9:30 at Peck Library.
Actually, they've changed it to a virtual Zoom meeting. And they have the login information if you go to the, I believe.
But is it that day?
Right, it's the same day, same time, but it's a virtual Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Which was the date of that, Frank?
Friday, September 8th, 9:30. Tracy Robinson from the Winnebago County Highway Department is the assistant to Carlos Molina, and Carlos is the one that typically is at those meetings. So she sent out the invite. Is that it, Sally?
Winburn Shoe training is still to be determined, right?
Yes, as far as I know.
And committee of the whole, we're waiting until we get back into meetings in the building.
Correct.
Okay, that's it.
There may need to be a public hearing next month.
Right, so we would schedule the public hearing next month at 6:45 p.m. And that would be on October 12th, 6:45 p.m. That's the public hearing for the appropriation, supplemental appropriation. Now I just need to confirm, I'm seeing that there are 8 people on the meeting, but I do show on the side that we do have people. Jeremy Graham is still on the side, Lori Morgan's on the side, but I don't see there. So I just want to confirm, Lori and Jeremy, are you still present?
Yes.
Jeremy is still present, and I just heard Lori as well.
Okay. And Stan, are you still present?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on then to new business. Do we have any new business tonight?
This is Jeff White. I just have one thing. I just received the draft of the IGA, Forming and Empowering the Northern Illinois Regional Records and Data Management System governance structure. I had a small committee of a few people that were involved in drafting this. I just wanted to get this out to, if you think it should go to everybody on the board, or should it go to Mary and you, Frank, or however you want me to send it, I'll send it out to whoever you want me to.
Just send it to everybody and I'll take a look at it. Whoever wants to look at it can.
All right, I'll get a copy of it sent out to everybody so they can take a look at it. Thank you.
I had an item for new business. Just wanted to let you know, and not sure if you're aware of this, but Senate Bill 1863, I believe it was passed, states that November of 2020, so November 3rd of 2020, the general election will be a state holiday for schools and certain public university employees. It requires that all of government offices, unless they are an election authority, be closed. So that would mean technically that our village office would be closed that day. Now, you probably have seen through the IML information that IML has filed a lawsuit to get a determination as to whether municipalities are part of that. And they're trying to obviously say that it's an unfunded mandate because now it's going to be another possibly paid, I guess, holiday where the employees will not come to work. So as of right now, we don't have an official determination as to whether our office shall be closed or not on election day. I believe Kelly Simons, you're going to be an election judge that day.
Yes, I am. I will be an election judge.
All right. So if the village office is open, then Kelly will not be here. She'll be election judge that day. If it is closed, obviously, don't have to worry about that. But so just be aware of that, and we'll let you know as soon as we find out if there's a ruling in that case. Another item I have is Denise Sparacino had notified us that there is a grant opportunity through an organization. I see it's CFNIL, and she was wondering if we might be able to submit a grant seeking funds for the 4th of July committee. And I believe Kelly just reached out to them, and they did say that yes, the village would be eligible to apply, so they could consider that to award. It is due by September 21st. And Kelly, were you able to find out, is there any type of a fee associated with the grant to apply for it?
I did not attend the webinar for that. Denise did, so she has most all of the information. So I need to get that information from her. So I don't know if there's a submission fee for that at all.
Frank, who is this for? You cut out. I can hear you.
It's an organization, CFNIL, and they give out, it's the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
And in conjunction with Freeport Community Foundation, they've given out grants in the past to certain places.
I'm very familiar with CFNIL, but what's the grant for what purpose?
We would be asking for fireworks for 4th of July event.
Huh. They typically don't have a fee to apply for a grant. I've never heard of them supporting something like fireworks, so interesting.
Yeah, organizations they've done would be United Way, Freeport for Child Care during the pandemic, the YMCA, mobile pantries, Voices, pandemic support, so different organizations. But again, if there's no fee, I would suggest that we look into it. If there is a fee, then I would, we would let you know what the fee is before we would submit a grant. So Kelly, if you could just ask Denise Sparacino if there's a grant fee and then what needs to be filled out. If it's not very complicated, we might be able to get that submitted by the deadline.
I'll be speaking with her tomorrow.
Okay.
Kelly, can you keep me in the loop on that? Like I said, I'm very familiar with that organization and kind of know what they look for. So if I can help, that'd be great.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Julie. Any other new business?
Just as a reminder to everyone, I know that a lot of the meetings are listed as to be determined, but if you are an individual committee meeting that still has the same requirement that a member of the public body has to be at the village office. I know we had discussion of this at Public Works, and I did confirm with one of the attorneys at the Attorney General's office at the PAC that member of the public body is considered to be the village president or one of the trustees. The other options are the village attorney, or if you have a chief administrative officer for the village. I did ask the question, well, what if committee's having a meeting and the village president just happens to be sitting in his office? Does that count, even though he's not part of the meeting? And he said, no one had asked him that question before, but he didn't think that that would be considered technically a violation, but just be aware that someone needs to be there. We don't quite know even why this rule exists, but it was passed by the legislature. So when you do have a committee meeting, someone who's a member of the public body does need to be physically at the village office unless the statute reads that it's not feasible or not practical. I think it's not feasible. That's the language. So, but just be aware that that's one of the requirements currently.
So if you do have a committee meeting and it's not feasible because maybe you don't have a laptop that you can bring, you have to be at home at your desktop or at your office at your regular job, that's fine, you can state that. But what I would suggest is when you start the meeting that you state why nobody is present at the village office, or if somebody is present, that that person state that he or she is present and fulfills that obligation. So again, we'll continue to do that for each meeting, whether it's a committee meeting or the village board meeting.
Not knowing how long this may persist would be help support having some of that equipment at the village office for that purpose.
There you go. Yep. Thank you, Mike. All right. Any other new business? All right. If there's no new business, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Don?
Who was it?
Mr. Kimes?
Don. Yes.
Was that Mr. Malagranda that made the motion?
Don Kimes.
Don Kimes did.
Do we have a second?
Stan Malagranda will.
All right. We need a roll call, please.
Forgot. Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night,
You too.
everyone.
Good night.
Good, Frank.
Take care.
Good night.
Everyone, good night.
Don't forget to stop recording.